Hello, I'm Martin Warwick and I'm the Editor-in-Chief of Telecom TV in London in the UK. I'm here at TIA 2013 in Washington DC in the United States, and I'm talking with Ronny Haraldsvik, who is the Chief Marketing Officer with SpiderCloud Wireless. Ronny, very welcome. The cloud is big news and there's been a lot of hype around it for the past few years. The hype to some extent is dying away now, and we're seeing the emergence of the reality. So in order to keep up with this growing demand in the market for big data, for capacity and for ever more speed, companies are looking to the cloud to support their services. What concerns do you have during this shift in the industry from managing your own data in private networks to handing some, if not all of your data, over to managed service providers?
So, SpiderCloud Wireless, even though we are a developer of scalable small cell systems and we sell into the mobile operators, we're also an enterprise at the end of the day. And, we took a good hard look at ourselves and, took a look at what we are trying to manage ourselves inside of our own data center. And we came to the conclusion that, roughly about 80% of all the functions that we are currently now buying, managing in form of hardware and software and licenses and compliance and keeping up with it, frankly, could be in someone else's data center or a managed service by a mobile operator. So the concerns are going to be the same as most. How do you handle security? How do you handle access? How do you are you able to, in essence, facilitate and provision and onboard people as they come on board into the company and take them off as they go along? And making sure that there's a service level agreement, SLA, that's in place between you and the service provider. And we do believe that the managed services, that is a big opportunity for mobile operators if they do decide to get in that game.
Look, there are new and growing issues that are prevalent everywhere as enterprises outsource their needs for service support and infrastructure. How do you manage your customers' expectations with dealing with issues around quality of service, as you just mentioned, and above all, perhaps security?
Yeah, two big issues there. And we have even bigger issues. We make systems that are sold into the mobile operators. You don't get the chance to deploy something and fix things as you go along on a hardware side or even a software side. So it's got to be robust and scalable from the get-go. Since we also manage or actually create systems that an operator can manage and then deploy into an enterprise, we need to make sure we address the enterprise concerns as well, which are the same as ours as an enterprise. Sure. And that again comes back to making sure that does it sit behind the firewall, in front of the firewall? Does it have the right type of security detection to deal with any type of hacker attack, the denial of service attacks, and so forth? And frankly, we have addressed all those issues up front for the last almost 5 years now. We have been, getting the input and direct feedback from CIOs and IT directors, so that we make sure that our services node, when deployed inside of an enterprise, does address the security concerns and also compliance issues that may be there as you get deployed. So, we have sort of a double protection around this, type of deployment and the system that we have, in the sense that we already done the work with the mobile operators, we already done the work with the IT departments.
Okay, theory's fine, and we all know that until you start doing things in practice. Can you give us a specific example of a security concern as your customer base gets more entrenched in mobile services that are often considered less secure than internal private networks?
Well, interestingly enough, 3G, 4G networks are viewed by mobile operators' customers, i.e. the enterprise, as intrinsically more secure than their own Wi-Fi networks. There's been enough studies on this to show that, especially on the wireless side of it, you have that extra protection in the encryption and so forth. Now, having said that, it's key that when this get deployed, that IT managers have a say in it. After all, in the case of our system, it sits on their local area network, their LAN. But it takes not even a 20-minute conversation with the IT director, primarily by having a former IT director has been handling global services and mobility and applications for a big conglomerate of a company, to sit down and talk to a colleague, an ex-colleague, and talk him through any of these concerns that they may have. And very often it's just a 20-minute conversation. This is what the operator wants to do. As the expert, I'm telling you, this is secure. And we have, of course, the security certificates and documentation and all the studies that have already been done by third parties. And when you have that in place, it becomes a lot easier to get deployed. So we've gone from maybe an hour conversation to a 20-minute conversation, which is tremendous.
Okay, let's look for a moment at the OTT players and where they sit in all this. Do you think that the, should we say, established, entrenched operators and service providers are a bit behind the curve here? Because they are struggling, it seems to me, to be to keep up with market demands for products and services and so on in a way that the OTT players seem to have taken and run off with by themselves and are going so quickly with it. Do you think, in your opinion, from what you see, that the service providers you deal with and so on are just that bit behind the curve and a bit too slow moving or a bit too cautious perhaps?
It's viewed as being, too slow-moving comparative terms to, say, maybe Silicon Valley and, lots of startups, whether that's in the UK or in the US. But, we have to, also take the side of the mobile operator, and considering the fact that they have, multi-billion-dollar systems and investments in spectrum and networks and OSS and BSS billing systems that they have to, make sure, can actually address this shift in services and new services being added on. Very often it takes a whole new process and procedure to be put in place in order to facilitate such. And that's just not done overnight. It's one thing to talk about it in theory, but in reality, it will take an operator, just to deliver an application service or a new network service, as much as a year or a year and a half, just to adapt internally to make it happen. So we have to understand that that's what's entailed. But I can honestly say with all the mobile operators that we are working with, they're getting up to speed fast and furious, and they're understanding that they actually can be a big player in these managed services in addressing the enterprise needs, especially when it comes to also addressing the in-building connectivity needs and addressing it from that perspective, which also opens up the door for mobile managed services.
Sure, and I presume the likes of Google, it's very simple for them to adapt very quickly because they don't have to bother about having all the network problems that the service providers and the original operators have.
Well, yes and no. I mean, in the sense that, Google, they have their own approach to scaling the network services.
Sure.
It's quite unique, and so they are able to actually toss in a new, even just a test application and, in essence, allocate bandwidth and services to it before they roll it out into the marketplace. So it's hard to compare a Google and where they come from just in the last 10 years vis-a-vis, say, established network infrastructure that may have legacy that goes back maybe 30 and 40 years. So but it's absolutely clear that most of the major mobile operators are adapting, and they're actually adopting very fast.
I can't let you go by asking a final question, which is about the market for small cells. How is it changing now that players like Cisco and Ericsson have got in on the act?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's talk about getting a stamp of validation. I mean, it's fantastic. There's been several smaller players that have been going at this for a while from a variety of applications, or addressing a variety of applications, whether it's outdoor only or indoor only, residential, small business. We've taken a whole different view of the market. We have gone and addressed the scalable systems market, meaning medium and large enterprises. So deployments by mobile operators into those areas. And now that we're seeing Cisco entering into this area from the small business and residential going up, and Ericsson coming in from a distributed antenna systems going down, it's just validating the fact that there's a big market for what we are doing, and the problem and the challenges are instrumental. So we're very pleased with the entry.
Interesting. Ronny Haraldsvik, thank you very much.
Oh, our pleasure. Thank you.